Oceano. No mar da memória, passos miúdos se apressam, no compasso ligeiro da música. No oceano perdido e insondável dos sentimentos, libertam-se giros e paragiros de emoções. Na fluidez das palavras que fogem dos lábios, nenhum som, só riso. E nos olhos, cristais de água salgada escorrem e dançam pelo rosto. A luz encontra a água e se desdobra colorindo a vida. O amor consagra e une. Nada há além do todo. Só a dança em mim. Gratidão, vozinho.
Hello Penny, my name's Keith Armstrong and I've been working with sacred dance since 1979 when I first met it. In Wales, where I lived, we held a conference, a One Earth gathering, and 3 people from Findhorn came down, one of them being Anna Barton, who was then the director of sacred dance in the Findhorn Foundation. Anna and I shared a lot that weekend, not only to do with the dance, but with various other things that she said I would find her husband was very much more in tune with than she was herself. We were speaking of the hierarchy of Sirius and other things of this nature. Over the next 6 months, Anna came down in November 1979. We'd met in September 79. She came down to Wales and gave a workshop which I attended. In February 1980 I came to Findhorn, did my experience week, and a week after that did the sacred dance workshop with Anna and her friend Bert. Bert was one of the regular members of the Tuesday group, which is a group dedicated to sacred dance that have been meeting, well, certainly all the time that I've known sacred dance, and probably before that also. To give you a brief history of the dance at Findhorn, in the 1970s, the early 1970s, ceilidhs were held, and at some point a number of international folk dances were brought to the community. Professor Bernard Voisin, a ballet master, a master mason and a Christian mystic, brought his understanding of dance to the Findhorn Foundation in 1976. At that time his daughter Maria Gabriella Voisin, had just had a book published called Sacred Dance. Bernard liked the wordplay on Heiliger and Heiländer in German, healing and holy, or rather holy and healing, to keep the same order, since for him wholeness and holiness were very much the same thing. He brought a number of choreographies before I had met sacred dance, before I met him, to the Findhorn community, including the Hymn of Jesus, which Gabriella has filmed, the Pentagon, Theseus and the Minotaur, and these were choreographies to various pieces of music that he had created, demonstrating the dance as a devotional study and as a path for the soul to walk. So dance for Bernard was a spiritual path. It was an act of devotion, and one he felt necessary for the human well-being. He spoke of the folk dances as being the means that the village used to heal itself. in the early 1960s he saw that the village dances were being taken from the village and put on stage to become tourist attractions, and he was very concerned that they would lose their real purpose, which was to bring the village together to celebrate, rejoice, and heal itself. He said, it isn't possible to dance in a circle with someone and remain angry at them. What he brought to us was dance as a spiritual path, dance as an act of devotion, and dance primarily as a language. He taught that the first three positions in ballet were the positions of the apprentice, of the journeyman, and of the master. When I came in September 1980 to the conference, the autumn conference that year, it was specifically to dance with Bernhard Vosin and to meet him. I'd heard of him from not only Anna, but by that time I'd met one or two other dancers who had learned their dancing at Findhorn. I should say that besides the choreographies Bernhard brought, he would also bring a number of traditional folk dances from Greece, the Balkans, indeed all over Europe, so that he was able to build up from an initial collection of a dozen dances. By the time I encountered them in 1980, there were maybe 50 or 60 dances, most of which had been brought by Bernhard.
Aprendiz. Eu achava que sabia quem era. Aí a dança despertou em mim e me descobri poeta. Vem então um turbilhão, espírito, corpo e razão, todos querendo existir. Quem é você, afinal? 1000 vezes essa pergunta me fiz. Ciência, arte ou religião? Sou um todo indivisível, meu ser é circular e vivo temporariamente numa cultura linear. Caminhante, curiosa, uma eterna aprendiz. Bebo a água da fonte, na dança, a força motriz.
You ask, what was the most memorable thing of dancing with Bernhard? I would have to say it was his joie de vivre, his life force, his enthusiasm, and his humour. Life itself was holy. Life itself was sacred. When we stand in a circle, he would say, we stand as the gods about our creation. So you ask then about what caused the popularity of sacred dance and the later movement of circle dance. I can't deal with this topic without speaking first of Anna Barton and the particular skill that she had, part of which she had learned from Bernhard Vosin and part of which she incorporated from the various tools and techniques used at Findhorn. One of these techniques is that of attunement, so we stand as a group holding hands in a circle and align with our own vertical axis, the axis of individuation, and the horizontal axis, the axis that we hold in common, that we share with one another. And in this alignment we align also with the spirit of the dance, terpsichore, the muse of the dance, and bring the circle into a wholeness, so that it is a complete thing. When we have unity in the circle, and that can take some time on occasions, 5 minutes or more, until everybody has relaxed and allowed their worries of the day to go and brought themselves fully present. Once we have that unity in the group, we're ready to move as a wholeness. And this was something that Bernard was very specific about, that he would teach the steps very thoroughly, making sure that everyone in the group had the steps and could dance before we went into dancing with the music. There is an impulse which has come from international folk dance, I think. I'll speak about that cross-fertilization later, in which people ask, having seen the steps and maybe danced them once or twice through, they want to rush into doing the dance with the music, saying, it's easier with the music. It actually isn't easier with the music, in my experience. I should say here also that all you are hearing is my opinion, and others may have their own opinions on the matter. If we haven't learned the steps before dancing to the music, we won't dance as a single circle. We'll dance as a group of individuals, trying to find the steps, some having the steps, some not knowing where they are. Something that both Anna and Bernard were very strong on was the beginning of the dance. These dances are repetitious. There are a sequence of steps. This is the language that Bernard spoke of. The steps are the syllables in the language. So we have a sequence of steps, perhaps followed by a second different sequence, and then repeating the first and the second and the first and the second. This is the usual form that folk dances take. Folk dance, of course, is a very broad term, and there are many exceptions to this rule or guideline. However, the point I'm trying to make is that because they're repetitious, they serve then as mantras for the body. The body performs the movements and then repeats them and repeats them. And when at last the steps are thoroughly learned, the mind can rest. And when the mind rests, consciousness is able then to permeate the whole body and not remain in the head. Until the steps are learned, it is the mind which directs the dancing, not the body. Unless we anchor the movement in the body, we will not liberate the soul through dance. Part of the reason that sacred dance spread around the world, unquestionably, was the role that Findhorn played and the role it gave to sacred dance in those early days. Everyone who came on Experience Week on Sunday morning would do sacred dance. Sacred dance was found to be a great unifier, a lovely way to introduce the group to itself, and a way to build group wholeness. Sadly, this has become less the case in recent years. Sacred dance is no longer exclusively the activity of Sunday morning, I should say. By the time I arrived in Findhorn, 1980, people were coming from all over the world, from Australia, New Zealand, America, all over Europe, and taking part in Experience Week and taking part in sacred dance. And enjoying sacred dance, they wanted to take it back to their communities, to share with friends. In 1981 or 82, I can't remember exactly, Anna and I took the dance to a community in Holland, Lelystad, that was a TM community founded on the teachings of the Maharishi. We then stayed with a pupil of a student of Bernard's, Friedel Kloker, and her daughter Nanny, both of whom are still teaching dance. And from there we went to France and danced in Paris before returning to Findhorn. I believe this was the first time that Anna had travelled abroad, though I might be wrong. I stayed myself in Findhorn until 1985 and spent most of those 5 years working with Anna to build up the collection of music, trying to improve the quality of the music, and the first sacred dance library. Working as a team, she was able to hold the group while I looked after the music. When she was ready to start, I could press the music and we could begin the dance. What is happening now, increasingly or commonly, is that teachers work alone. They have to step out of the circle to put the music on. This causes disruption in the circle. The focus, which is key to a successful sacred dance session, is very easily lost under these circumstances.
A dança de Gaia. No movimento das horas há espaço e som, na dança do tempo, imensidão. Em fria paisagem, o arrepio branco, na delicadeza do existir, a vida em movimento. Na rotação da terra e na translação que faz, o sistema em espiral uma certeza me traz. Sob o calor do sol ou no escuro do espaço, desenham-se trajetórias. Tudo no universo dança.
When the first people left Findhorn, enthused with sacred dance, they found that to continue taking regular groups, they needed more dances. And so the obvious place to draw these dances from was the realm of the international folk dance. Unfortunately, the energy within international folk dance is not that of transcendence of the self, giving the self to the group as a whole in order to become part of something greater than oneself, but rather the focus is on the details of the steps, the occasions on which this dance is performed, and all of the other additional information that goes with the dances. So I would characterize international folk dance as being a movement of dances, where I would say sacred dance is learning the language of dance, using dance forms, various dance forms. From the cross-pollination of sacred dance with international folk dance, and through various situations that arose among groups in Britain, it was decided in 1984 to change the name from sacred dance to circle dance. The argument was that the word sacred was putting people off. At the same time, a number of conventions had been introduced such that if you knew a different version of the dance from that the teacher was showing, you might wait until after the dance to speak with the teacher about it and not interrupt their teaching with the version that you knew. This is very understandable. There is nothing so disconcerting as to be told that you're doing the wrong steps. A second convention was that if there were more than one teacher in the circle, it was courteous to offer the opportunity to another of the teachers to share a dance with the group. Both of these factors led to the loss of focus on the center of the group. Bernard explained the center as being the place where God is. He said, not my God, not your God, but that which we hold in common. By losing that focus in the center, the focus came to the circumference of the circle. Instead of being centered, it became peripheral. I believe it was a subconscious recognition of this change in the energy working through the circles that were meeting, that was carried in the change of name from sacred to circle dance. You ask how Bernard reacted as the dances began to spread. Well, he didn't actually see the huge spread of dance that has happened since, shall we say, the end of the 80s. He himself died in 1986, but he saw the beginning of that. In 1985, over midsummer, a sacred dance festival was held here in Findhorn, in which 50 teachers came from America and from all over Europe, as well as most of the teachers in Britain, to take part in this festival and what was to be his last performance at Findhorn. He was very pleased to see so many people and so many nations represented. At one point he said, "When I go, I will be with you all." And as he left the auditorium to travel to Inverness and catch his plane, he turned back to the hall, did a deep bow, brushed his boots off with his cap, as if to say, "My work is done," and turned and left us. A little more than 6 months later, at the time of Chernobyl, perhaps 8 or 9 months later then, he died. You ask what specific quality Anna Barton brought to the dance. She had an extraordinary gift for creating wholeness in the circle and healing for the individual. She would speak of the dance allowing spirit to descend into the body, bypassing the mind. Sadly, what I see today so often is that it is the mind that is directing the movement, as I said earlier, and not the body. In dance, we can express joy, sorrow, grief, emotions that go beyond words. In English, we speak of being moved when something touches us. Just so in dance, you can express all of these emotions. And I will leave this here. May you enjoy dancing and find that depth of soul which Bernard always held before us in the manner in which he embodied the dances. Thank you.
Imaginem vocês que nesse exato momento a Terra gira no espaço ao redor do próprio eixo numa velocidade de 460 metros por segundo, como um peão solto no espaço, e nós, sobre esse peão, giramos junto com a Terra. Como se não bastasse esse movimento, ela também gira ao redor do Sol. E nesse exato momento, viajamos sobre a Terra, girando também ao redor do Sol, numa velocidade de 30.000 metros por segundo. Ou, podemos dizer, 108.000 quilômetros por hora. Em um ano, teremos completado um giro inteiro ao redor do Sol. Outros planetas também giram ao redor do Sol, junto com seus satélites, compõem um sistema solar localizado no braço mais externo da galáxia que chamamos Via Láctea. E também esse sistema solar, composto de planetas e satélites naturais, asteroides, meteoros, planetas anões, também gira ao redor do centro da galáxia a 1 milhão de quilômetros por hora. Nesse exato momento, tudo é movimento. Tudo é dança no universo.